Thank you for joining us today for another one of our New Knowledge Adventures classes on Zoom. We appreciate you getting on and being part of our spring classes. And just a brief history on the NKA program, which has now been over 15 years in the making and in the production, I should say. And it did begin in Pocatello with ISU University. And in 2014, it did become something that came to the Treasure Valley with AARP and Idaho University, State University here in Meridian, along with Treasure Valley YMCA. And they formed a partnership that created this program. Now it's become something on Zoom where we can broadcast anywhere, which has made things even open up to a bigger community. So all of us are volunteers, and our presenters are volunteers today too. They give their time and their expertise to us just so we all can pick up and learn on some of their knowledge. So we appreciate that. Now that we're in the Zoom world since the pandemic, all of our classes this year are on Zoom. And at this point, we think it'll be the same way in September, but you never know. But we hope you're gonna please look on our C-Event calendar. And if you haven't signed up for any of the other classes we have, please do. My name is Marie Bonamino, and I happen to be on the curriculum committee. If there's any classes that you know of or someone that you know that would like to present a class and you feel it's something that all of our community would benefit from, please let me know or just send that in to us. And we'd like to consider anything that you may think is going to be interesting to us. And also, if you'd like to volunteer for anything, please join up with AARP Idaho and become part of all of this program. Today, you've signed up to see Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia. And we have two people who are with us. Rick Vogel happens to be part of this presentation today, along with Dr. Lisa Hong. And Dr. Lisa Hong is going to be the one that's going to walk us through this presentation that you see on should be seeing on your screen right now. So please let us know if you have any problems going on that you're not able to see the presentation. You can ask questions along the way if you'd like. You can put that in the chat. You could use your reaction if you'd like and raise your hand or raise your hand. You are all muted right now, but if there's something that you just don't want to forget to ask, please unmute yourself and ask that question. Dr. Hong is available for us. She's coming to us today from Idaho Falls. So here we are. This is one way how we can put these classes on. And she is an occupational therapist doctor. And she's going to give us this presentation. Been doing this for the last 12 years, and she has experience with home health, skilled nursing, outpatient rehab. She has a private practice. She did begin with ISU, but now has turned into her own practice. She's a native of Southeast Idaho and did get her bachelor's degree in health care administration and a master's degree in occupational therapy. I think I'll let her tell you that what it is she does and how she began her practice on her own, and let her take it from here, and hope all of you will have questions along the way if you'd like to, or please just put them in the chat and I'll watch that for her along the way. So go ahead, Dr. Hong.
Thank you. I appreciate being here today. This is a lot of fun for me. I'm a little weird in that I love working with Alzheimer's and dementia. It's definitely a special interest area of mine. So as you mentioned, I am an occupational therapist. And what that means is we are part of a therapy team, part of a rehabilitation team. And the idea is that occupation are the things that you do every day to occupy your time. So if for some reason you're having trouble doing those activities that are meaningful to you and necessary for you, an OT is somebody who can help you either restore abilities or adapt the activities so that you can so that you can continue on. We work across the lifespan. So we have kids in our clinic from a few months old on up to end of life. So, but and I work with all of those, but really my love is in geriatrics and dementia care. And I got interested in that because of my grandmother. She had Alzheimer's, and this was before I became an OT. And I just watched all of the things that she couldn't do, saw the things that she could still do, and watched my family wrestle with many, many things, and thought, we can do better, and I want to do better. So in my realm as an occupational therapist, my job is really to help educate the caregivers and the families about how this disease works. So this is what you're getting a taste of today. And really to help the person with the dementia to still have meaningful life activities. And you'll see that even though there are a lot of things, a lot of abilities that we lose, there are a lot of remaining abilities that give us a great quality of life. Also, she mentioned, if you have questions, sometimes I can't remember them all at the end, when I'm watching a presentation, so feel free to put them in the chat box. Hopefully we'll cover everything that you'd like to see today. Also, I'll ask Rick if you'll put contact information in the chat box, then Rick can get a hold of me, and I'm happy to be a resource for you. So go ahead with the next slide, Rick. All right, so the impact of Alzheimer's, I know that everybody in this chat room or in this Zoom meeting has heard of Alzheimer's disease. It is hard to find somebody who doesn't know what this disease is, or has somebody that they know and love who has been impacted by this disease. And it's just getting bigger and bigger. And a lot of that is because our lifespan is longer, and we are solving a lot of medical problems earlier on that impacted our life expectancy. So biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's right now is age. I probably gave that away, but go ahead with the next slide, Rick. But we have so many Americans. We'll go ahead and play this video here. Oh no, it's test your knowledge. So we're going to do just a little quiz. Now, usually I have a room full of people and I can ask them, what do you think, true and false, and answer questions here. But here we'll just have to wing it, okay? So how many Americans are currently living with Alzheimer's disease? All of these are pretty astronomical numbers, but you will see that our answer is right now, 5.8 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, and this number is projected to go up way, way too high, 14 million by 2050 if something doesn't change.
We just had, Lisa, the new numbers released just like within the last couple of days, and it's now over 6 million people and 37,000 in Idaho. So this slide has not been updated because those numbers were just released a couple of days ago.
Thank you. Thank you. And those are just Alzheimer's numbers, correct, Rick? Yeah, so there are many other types of dementias that people are living with. And so this is just the tip of the iceberg here. And for every one of these Americans, we have caregivers going on, caring for them. Go ahead with the next slide, Rick. We'll have another question here, I think, about caregivers. So how many unpaid caregivers are there in the United States? These are family members usually, usually children or spouses who are caring for someone they love. 16.2 million Americans are providing unpaid care. That is an astronomical amount of money that is not being paid, but it is an impact because these people are holding down jobs while they're caring for people. They have sick days they're using. They have their own health is impacted. So we are seeing a lot of economic impact with this disease in the United States. Go ahead with the next slide. All right, now we'll see the facts here. Again, this is updated every year, so we have a new one on our website if you want to take a look. Thank you. So with this video, it's a very short one. We do have a longer video available on alz.org. I would really encourage you, if you have not already looked at that website, to take a look at it. It is so chock full of information, way beyond what you're going to get from me today. But I want to point out one factoid that they had on there, and it said that right now Alzheimer's is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And this is the only cause of death that has no cure, no prevention, and really no treatment for the disease itself. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done here, and we'll share some things later on how you can impact that. There are some great things happening, a lot of research going on, and there are some reasons to be hopeful. But in the meantime, we really do have a huge impact, even if you don't have this disease yourself. Okay, Sandy, I love the good timing on this question. Sandy just asked in the chat room, is there anything we can do to avoid this issue? Always get this question. And people will say, well, gosh, if I do crossword puzzles, if I do word searches, does that keep me from getting Alzheimer's? I will say no, but it can help. So the biggest causal factors I mentioned earlier, age is a huge one, and there's not much we can do about that. Genetics can play a part, not always, but they can. But a big correlation with brain health is our heart health. So if we keep our bodies healthy, our circulation healthy, then it's going to go a long ways to keeping your brain healthy. I would also encourage you, there is research that shows that things like new learning, which is why this is great that the new knowledge adventures are here. I love this program because you should never just sit and retire and not learn anything new, right? So stuff like just like this is helpful for decreasing the impact of dementia. Sandy also asked, what are the physiological causes of death? You will rarely see somebody's death certificate that says died of Alzheimer's. As the disease progresses, we are more susceptible to things. It'll often be things like pneumonia, sepsis, or things like that will eventually cause death. So the dementia itself does not, but because it impacts the brain and we lose more and more abilities, besides just memory, we lose physical abilities too. And eventually it does affect the brainstem, which is responsible for breathing and swallowing and those basic functions too. Thanks for asking that question. All right, go ahead with the next slide, Rick.
So Lisa, what about the different things that are marketed, the medications that are marketed, the ones that are over the counter and you see so many commercials on it?
Sure.
Are any of those proven to help?
Okay, so right now, and Rick, jump in if you need to here. So right now, the medications that are available, first of all, the prescription medications that are available are really just treating symptoms. They don't slow the disease down necessarily. They don't reverse. They definitely don't reverse it. You are going to see a lot of people who have products that are claiming to help this disease process. I am not a scientist. I am not a biologist by nature, and I do look at the research, but my expertise is not always in the biological sciences. But I would just caution you to be careful with those types of medications, because if there was a cure, we wouldn't have 6 million Americans with Alzheimer's disease, right? But there are things that may be helpful. And I'm all for taking, vitamins, things that might be helpful for you. But please please keep your doctor in the loop about these things. Do the research, do the due diligence, okay? Anything you want to add to that one, Rick?
Well, thanks for bringing that up. I'm a senior. I belong to AARP, and I get the emails all the time that typically seniors get, right? And I wish I could get $1 for every email I get from supplement companies telling me that their supplements are going to cure, I'm going to use the word cure, Alzheimer's or dementia. And I'm not going to pick on the supplement guys because there are a lot of good supplements out there. However, there have been no scientific approved studies done that show clinical evidence that any supplement out there will cure Alzheimer's or other dementias. So I caution folks right now not to be misled by the supplements and the vitamin organizations that are out there touting that will cure Alzheimer's or dementias.
Believe me, we would love nothing better than to see a cure happen.
Yeah.
I think there's nobody involved in the Alzheimer's Association that wouldn't like to see us out of a job at some point. So, but do look at the science, and again, the Alzheimer's Association they're a big funder of all of the research that goes on, and they have their web page is so deep. It's got all sorts of updates on research that can be helpful as you're looking at those options. Thank you for asking that. We want to say, is Alzheimer's a normal part of the aging process? It is not. Not everybody gets Alzheimer's disease, but it is a brain disease and it causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. We all have days when we forget. I mean, I bought a drink today and almost left my credit card behind. So there are days that we forget things, right? That's normal. Forgetting things like, what do I do with my credit card, or not being able to retrace my steps, those are definitely more telling and are more problematic. Go ahead with the next slide, Rick. All right, true or false? People younger than 65 can get Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, this is true. 200,000 Americans under the age of 65. We do call that an early onset Alzheimer's. It is a little bit different, and it has a higher genetic content, a genetic link than the other. But in some cases, people can develop the disease in their 40s or 50s. Unfortunately, again, we've seen this, and we would like to not see this anymore. Go ahead to the next page. But the vast majority of people with Alzheimer's are older than 60. So I want you to hear from some of our experts here from the Alzheimer's Association. Go ahead and play that, if you would.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow and the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
Certainly, having the diagnosis of Lewy body was helpful in our planning because we began to understand where this was coming from in the brain, where otherwise we would not have known. Like we knew something was happening, but what was it? To give it a label actually helped, although it was a big umbrella. It explains some of the characteristics and symptoms that we were experiencing and seeing.
Thank you. An accurate diagnosis is important because, like she said, it gets you some help and support that you might need ahead of time. There are some things that if we can keep our bodies healthy, we're going to be able to participate in those meaningful activities that we have. But just to recap what we've done so far, this is the other big question that I always get is what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? As she mentioned, dementia is the general term, it's the umbrella. Alzheimer's takes up most of the room under there. There are other types, and it is not normal for us to get this, but it is a progressive disease. There are reasons why people have the behaviors that they do in dementia, and it is a biological brain disease. So it's not just somebody trying to annoy you when they're not cooperating. So, all right, go ahead with the next slide, please. All right, here's our brain. So you can see that we have a normal size brain, and Alzheimer's does impact that, the size, the capacity, different areas, and pretty classical presentation in Alzheimer's. And go ahead and play that video.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alice Alzheimer's described specific changes in the brain, what we call the formation of plaques and tangles. Now, Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and is thought to impact memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has three main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. The cerebrum fills up most of your skull. It is part of the brain most involved in remembering, problem solving, thinking, and even feelings. There are about 100 billion nerve cells or neurons throughout the brain that transmit messages in order for us to create memories, feelings, and thoughts. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the brain tissue loss, or what we call shrinkage, and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, behavioral issues, and even at the end stages, problems with swallowing.
Okay, so to recap that, we've known about Alzheimer's for about 100 years, and we keep learning more and more every day. We do see the plaques and tangles, which have been thought to cause interruption in the messages getting around in the brain. We do have physical changes in the brain because of Alzheimer's that result in thinking and behavior and memory. Go ahead with the next slide. Okay, we talked a little bit earlier about some of the risk factors, but let's go ahead and look at the next slide here. All right, we'll just talk about a few of them. Go ahead with the next. I'm going to test your knowledge. It's not a hard test, but okay. We already mentioned what the greatest risk factor for Alzheimer's disease is, and it is age. There are links with genetics and family history, but the greatest risk factor is age. Your risk gets bigger and bigger the older you get. 32% of people age 85 and older have Alzheimer's. And unfortunately, you know, the other 60 some odd percent are usually caring for those people. So go ahead with the next slide. Okay, we'll hear from another one of our experts at the Alzheimer's Association.
Alzheimer's disease is marked by specific brain changes that result in the clinical changes in individual experiences. That is, changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. And ultimately, Alzheimer's is fatal. The exact cause for these changes is unknown, but there are some hints as to what may contribute to an individual's risk. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's. And when we look at populations of people, we see an increased risk over the age of 65. However, Alzheimer's is not normal aging. Family history is also a known risk factor. Research has shown that those who have a parent or a sibling with Alzheimer's are more likely to develop the disease, and that risk increases if more than one family member has Alzheimer's. When we talk about the genes involved in Alzheimer's, there are two categories that could potentially be involved: risk genes and deterministic genes. Risk genes increases an individual's risk for developing the disease, but does not guarantee that they will develop Alzheimer's. Deterministic genes, which are rare for Alzheimer's, guarantee that the person will develop the disease.
Thank you. Now we do, in some demographic studies, have higher risk factors in some populations. Unfortunately, we find that Hispanics are about 1.5 times as likely as whites to develop Alzheimer's. African Americans are twice as likely, and almost 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's are women. Again, this last statistic happens because women tend to have a longer lifespan statistically than men. But we also put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and we may not be taking care of ourselves as well as we should, and that can also impact. Right. So to recap this one again, age is our biggest risk factor. Keep your brain healthy and active. Family history is not much. There's not much we can do about that, but it can increase your knowledge and looking ahead. She talked about the two different types of genes. The deterministic, those are not as common, and we talked about the populations that are at higher risk. Go ahead with the next slide, Rick.
Lisa.
Yeah.
A question.
Sure.
If someone gets early onset dementia, so let's say someone is getting dementia in their 40s or 50s, do they still, is it documented that they would still have as long of life, but they would live with this that longer, let's say, than the person who gets it at 75?
Not usually. Usually the lifespan of somebody with life expectancy with somebody with Alzheimer's disease can be 8 to 20 years. I mean, you can live with this for a long time. People who have the early onset, because it's a little bit of a different cause, tend to have a shorter life expectancy. Is there anything different with that, Rick, you want to say? No, okay.
No, the life expectancy is the same. It can be, I mean, it's generally around 8 years, but we have folks with Alzheimer's that have lived, upwards of 20 years. So, and regardless of the age, it's from point of diagnosis, as Lisa mentioned.
And there's such a range because we really, some people don't get diagnosed until they're well into the middle stages. Others notice things more quickly and want to have answers more quickly and will get tested earlier. So it really kind of depends. You can be living with dementia for a long time before having a diagnosis. So, and then
so many people would just have dementia and not have other medical problems, correct?
that can happen.
It's not like other medical problems don't bring this on or don't
Right.
cause it to end up coming on a person faster. You could be a healthy person and just have dementia as your only medical problem, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that I don't see that happening a lot just because as we get older, we tend to have more things going on. But yes, yeah, there's not like a causal agent that, gosh, I had pneumonia, that means I'll get Alzheimer's. There are some diseases that do have more of correlation, like Parkinson's disease tends to have a lot of dementia in there. Not always, but it can. And Huntington's disease, some things like that have Alzheimer's, or have not Alzheimer's, but dementia that are part of that disease process as well. But yeah, you can be a very healthy person. I've known people who are very active and then have dementia, and just because of that progression that happens, they lose mobility and other problems happen, and so they start to decline. And those people like that may live longer than somebody who had a morbidity like diabetes or something like that. So, and let me know if that doesn't answer your question. And thank you I love the questions. It's awesome. So I mentioned that I talked a little bit about a middle stage disease, but we're going to talk a little bit about all the different stages of the disease. Go ahead with the next slide, Rick. Okay, so does everyone with Alzheimer's experience the same early symptoms? Yes and no.
One of the
Go ahead, sorry.
things that impacts our brain is all the other things that can happen to us as we age. And we know that Alzheimer's, the most common risk factor for getting Alzheimer's disease is age. But we also have lots of other things that go wrong with us as we age. And so how those other health factors impact our brain can also impact how Alzheimer's presents in other people.
It's a different kind of forgetting. It really, really is. It's not just forgetting where I put my car keys. It's much deeper than that. And for example, I cannot read a book. I used to be a voracious reader because by the time I turn a page, I have forgotten what I had read. And if you're reading a novel, you have to know what transpired before in order for you to continue to read on. And so I can't read a novel. So I've even stopped trying.
Math, I can't do a simple tip anymore. You know, I sit there, I stare at it. It's crazy what numbers I can't deal with anymore. And in some ways, that's the disease to me. The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life. You know, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
I'm like an overachiever and when you're unable to deliver or you're not performing at the same pace that you once did before, that's frustrating. It's frustrating to not know where you place things. It's frustrating to not be able to explain to someone the problems that you're having. You can't articulate it in a way. It's frustrating to read something and you forgot what you read. It's frustrating to continuously have to change your password and you just changed it last week and you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again.
I think the thing that surprises me the most about my dementia is that it is progressive, and I'm finding that I'm forgetting more. And they do memory tests for me all the time at the doctor, and so that becomes a little disconcerting at times to see my cognitive impairment continue to decline. But again, I really have hope. I don't live really in the future. I can't live in the future. I can't worry about what the future is going to bring. I have to live for today.
Most definitely. And that's really where I like to come in as an OT is living that moment. How can we still live with or without the disease? So you've heard some of the things that people struggle with. All of these people that you saw have the disease and are living in the early stages of that disease. So they may still be working. They may still be out in the community and holding board positions or whatever. But as the disease progresses, they will lose some function and ability. So again, that mild stage can last for a long time. There's not really a time frame, I think, for each. You can stay in one stage for a while, but it does progress. So go ahead with the next slide, please.
Alzheimer's affects everyone differently. As a result, it's difficult to place a person in a specific stage of the disease. However, there are 3 general stages that are commonly referred to as early, middle, and late stage Alzheimer's. In a medical context, you may hear these stages referred to as mild, moderate, and severe. In the early stage of Alzheimer's, an individual may be able to function independently. However, they may start noticing more frequent memory lapses. Friends and family may also begin to notice difficulties in the person, and a healthcare provider may be able to detect problems in memory or concentration by conducting a detailed medical interview. Middle stage Alzheimer's is typically the longest stage and can last for many years. Damage to the brain cells can make it difficult to express thoughts and perform routine tasks, and this can lead to increased feelings of frustration and anger. In the final stage of the disease, an individual loses the ability to hold a conversation, control their movements, or respond to the environment around them. Cognitive skills, that is, their memory, thinking, and reasoning skills, continue to decline, and this can lead to personality changes and need for round-the-clock care.
Okay, so again, to recap those stages, and you'll hear different people stage things a little bit differently, but in general, we do have an early, middle, and late stage, or mild, moderate, and severe. Okay, again, no two people experience those symptoms the same, and that's because we have to factor in your general health, we have to factor in your environment, we have to factor in your other comorbidities. So, and your abilities will change, but there are abilities that remain, and there I will go to my grave saying that people need to be able to be engaged with the abilities that they have. Go ahead with the next slide, please, Rick. Okay, so we talked a little bit earlier about some medications, but here are a few of the things that the FDA has approved to treat Alzheimer's. And we test our knowledge first. Okay, there are several drugs available to slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease. We talked earlier, we said that that is false. There is no treatment to prevent. There are some really exciting things being tested right now, being trialed, but they are not currently available on the market. And there are drugs that address some of the symptoms, things like memory loss or behaviors or anxiety, things like that. Go ahead with the next slide. All right, we'll hear from our expert again.
There are currently several drugs that are FDA approved to treat the cognitive symptoms associated with Alzheimer's disease. They treat the symptoms, but they don't treat the underlying cause. So eventually people will progress, but they do treat some of the symptoms and help people for a time. So the first class of drugs are cholinesterase inhibitors. These drugs work to prevent the breakdown of acetylcholine, which is a chemical messenger found in the brain that's associated with learning and memory. There are 3 FDA-approved drugs that are in this class of drugs. There's Aricept, there's Exelon, and there's Razidine. There's another class of drugs that's modulates glutamate, which is another chemical messenger in the brain that's associated with learning and memory. And this drug is called Namenda. And then there's a final class, which is actually a combination of cholinesterase inhibitors and glutamate modulator, and this is called Namzaric.
I was going to say, Lisa, that where you may not recognize, the folks may not recognize some of those types of drugs like cholinesterase inhibitors or glutamate, they may recognize the names of the drugs themselves. I know Aricept does a commercial, Namenda does a commercial.
Right. Yeah, and again, all of that information, if you want to keep a look at alz.org, they really do keep that updated very well. I've actually got an app on my phone that keeps me updated with research available. So again, they address the symptoms of Alzheimer's. We're not able to treat the underlying cause of the disease at this point. Looks like somebody else had a question here. Okay, so what about diets such as plant-based and coconut oil and MCT? Again, I am not well versed on all of that literature. I would take a look. I would say anything that makes you generally healthy, do it. Do it for your whole body health, and it may or may not change the fact that you get Alzheimer's, but it will impact the outcome if you're a healthier person. So yeah, again, I think that the Alzheimer's website does have some information on those diets. There's a lot of information, and I'll just pause here to tell you, do look at the science behind it. You want to look and make sure that it was a valid study. If the FDA has approved it, that's always helpful. You want to look at who's funding it, maybe. You want to look at their sample size. How many people have they been looking at with these different things? You know, if it's a small sample, 10 or 20 people, that's not very indicative of the population. So you want to make sure that you are just being a wise consumer. I don't think any of those things will hurt you necessarily, but they may or may not impact the outcome of
There's kind of an old adage that if it's healthy for the heart, it's healthy for the brain. And plant-based and Mediterranean diets are healthy for you. So, just kind of keep that in mind. There was a study done called the Pointer Studies that originated in Europe, and they're doing another phase of it in the United States. And they address lifestyles, which include diet. And they specifically talk about the Mediterranean diet in there. But I would think that plant-based would also be healthy for you. As Dr. Hong mentioned, on our website, it has a search bar up there, and you can put in dementia and plant-based diet, and it'll give you a ton of information, and that's alz.org.
Thank you. Go ahead with the next slide, Rick. I think as a society, we would love to have a way to just nip it in the bud, right? And we'd love to be able to just say, take this and it's done. Unfortunately, we're not there yet with Alzheimer's. We are trying so hard. There is so much money going towards research, and there are some great things that have come out of it. But unfortunately, we've been stymied a little bit in actually treating the actual disease. So go ahead with the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about how to advance the research.
This is an incredibly exciting time in Alzheimer's and dementia research. The advancements that we've made in the last decade to understand the disease as a continuum, meaning that the biological changes are starting a decade or more before someone is experiencing the changes in the memory and thinking. This sets the stage for possible prevention. The idea that when we have the tools to identify those individuals at the earliest time point, and when we have the interventions to target individuals at that earliest time point, we can intervene to stop or slow the progression of the disease before an individual loses their memories.
I'm excited about what we're learning these days regarding lifestyle. One of those things that we've seen in the past of things like exercise and nutrition have now started to gain more momentum to indicate to us that it can change your ability to slow cognitive decline. That is really the first stages of Alzheimer's disease. This may include things like social engagement, mental cognitive training. It can be things such as exercise. It can be nutrition. All those things are now starting to point that they will lower your risk for Alzheimer's disease.
A lot of hope does come from the Alzheimer's Association, all the research that is being done. Even though there is not a cure today for the disease, I know in my heart there is going to be a cure one day. And I know we're getting closer for that cure. Because even if you fail in a research study, you learn from that failure in the research study. That failure always brings progression.
It's nice to see the association spearheading in many ways the emphasis on getting the money at the federal level and at the private sector to get the research done so that someday there will be an effective treatment, hopefully cure, hopefully prevention.
Sorry, thanks for that. As she mentioned, there are some failures that happen, and we do learn a ton from those. And there's reasons that we need to go ahead and help with that research. There are a couple of different ways that you can do that. So we have a trial match program through the Alzheimer's Association. And in that program, they are looking for people who will participate in some of these studies. So they need people who are testing things out. And you can get more information on that in alz.org. Now, they don't just need people who have dementia, they do need healthy test subjects as well. And so you can get medications and examinations and things like that. And they can do them near you, hopefully. Here in Idaho Falls, we don't have tons of options, so they do have studies in Salt Lake and I believe in Boise as well.
You in Boise, most of the folks in Idaho, including Eastern Idaho, your neck of the woods, generally go down to Utah, or they go to Portland or Seattle. the closest ones generally. There's a couple in Boise, but they're not real advanced clinical studies that they're doing here. And then aside from those three, there's of course tons of them done in California and a lot of them done in Denver as well. And they'll talk a little bit on those boxes I'm going to push. They'll talk a little bit about those clinical studies there.
Go ahead
Are you-
with that, Rick.
Okay.
More important than ever for people to participate in clinical studies. The fact is, right now, we don't have an effective treatment to stop Alzheimer's disease. And if we don't have people participating in clinical trials, we never will. And so participating in a clinical study is one way that everyone can get involved in a very direct way in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. And for people who currently have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, there are some additional benefits. You get access to very close medical care. You also may be among the first people to have access to the treatments that will eventually prove to work.
Sometimes you hear the phrase, it's a failed trial. That means that it didn't hit the endpoint, it didn't achieve an FDA-approved drug. But I would say as a scientist, the only failed trial is one that doesn't give you valuable information. And if the trial is well designed, if it is a good scientific experiment, you get extremely valuable data so that you can plan the next trial and do the next study even better than the last one. And it gets you that much closer to that FDA-approved drug, to that effective treatment, and maybe someday even a cure.
Currently, more than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. By participating in clinical research, you can move us toward methods of treatment and prevention for all those affected by this devastating disease. Alzheimer's Association Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for those with dementia, caregivers, and healthy volunteers. To start, simply create a confidential user profile and receive a list of studies that may be a match for you. Don't just hope for a cure, help us find one.
Thank you. There are so many ways that you can impact the bottom line without being a researcher yourself. So we can be supportive of those trials, both with our time, with our dollars, and becoming part of those trials. And again, take a look at the alz.org. They can give you some more detailed information and where some of those trials are being held and what they are. So definitely would encourage you to do that. Even if, if nothing else, you're helping somebody out there who may or may not get that disease. So go ahead with the next slide. Okay. So we are part of the Alzheimer's Association, and as I mentioned, not only is this a volunteer thing for the AARP, but I'm a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association. I volunteer because I believe in their cause, I believe in their methods, and I believe in their impact. And so I've chosen to align myself with them. They are an incredible organization. They offer so many different things. We'll talk some more about those, but really quickly, their supports, just right off the bat, they have a 24-hour helpline, and it is staffed 24 hours a day by master's level clinicians who know what they're talking about. So if you are a frontline caregiver and you're saying, oh my gosh, my mom's wandering again, I don't know what to do. Or if you are caregiving from far away and you say, gosh, my mom might need some support. I don't know where to turn. What do I do? They've got answers to those questions, whether it's 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. They are there, and 12 months a year, every day, holidays and everything. So we've mentioned this several times, but alz.org is a good place to start. They have information about more detailed information than what I've been able to give you today, as far as how the brain works and how it's impacted. It will also give you ideas on caregiver supports that are available. It can match you to your area and things that are available for you as a caregiver, or even just as a provider or an interested party. So go ahead with the next slide, unless you want to add anything there, Rick.
No, but there's a little video with each one of these. I do want to point out on the bottom there, alz.org, CRF. That's Community Resource Finder. And that is a program that's done jointly between the Alzheimer's Association and AARP. We created this program jointly and we co-sponsor it, and it's fantastic. I'll play these videos so you can learn a little bit more about each one of these, but pay particular attention to the CRF program as it's going to steer you towards resources in your particular area.
Thank you.
I've had a couple of phone calls that I've been able to make in to the call center when I've had a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. You know, there's been a couple of nights, 2 o'clock in the morning, you have questions, you have anxieties, and I was struggling dealing with them, and it's amazing. It was one of the best things I ever did, was keeping the call center on my favorites now. Just to know that there's somebody you can call who is aware of what you're going through.
We'll talk about alz.org, yeah.
When I went to the Alzheimer's Association website, which is alz.org, there I was trying to find out more about what was Alzheimer's, what really is this disease, what is younger onset Alzheimer's, what is dementia, is there a cure, how long has this been around, how many people are affected by this, where can I go for resources, where can I go for help, what do I do with this? How can I handle this? Is there more people like me out there? Is there someone that I can talk to if I need to? And there I found the support line that's 24 hours a day. And there I found where I can go for workshops, where I can go and read things and postings that people have done, where I can find out what events is happening in the Alzheimer's Association, where I can see how it's affecting people around the globe.
Since I've been diagnosed with dementia, the one place that I know I can go to for assistance and help and support is to the Alzheimer's Association. There are people there that I know by name that I can contact if I'm having a difficult time or if I'm struggling to find some resource, that they will provide that to me.
I just want to mention that we talked about resources through the Alzheimer's Association. AARP has a very robust resource finder booklet. And in fact, I refer people to AARP. I do some care consulting for the association as well. And I will refer them to AARP. And I, in fact, keep one of AARP's resource guides close by in my office here that I'll pick up and refer to. So as far as specific to Alzheimer's or other dementias, the Alzheimer's Association is a good resource, but for other disease states and other issues related to aging or other health problems, AARP has a fantastic, robust community resource program as well.
Most definitely, I would echo that. Thank you. All right. So we mentioned that we need your help in order to eliminate this disease eventually, but we're going to talk about some ways that we can do that. Go ahead with the next slide. Okay.
You want me to take this, Lisa, or did?
Oh, sorry, I was waiting for video.
Oh.
Just jump in whenever. So like I mentioned, I'm a volunteer for the Alzheimer's Association, and really they have a place for so many different volunteers. I walked in and I said, you know what, I'm not a fundraiser. I don't have a lot of interest in fundraising, but I do believe in impacting this disease process. And they said, we've got a spot for you. We have other people who are like, I don't know anything about dementia, but I want to get rid of it. So, and I know a lot of people. We put them on a different committee. So there's a lot of different ways. If you're into advocacy, there's a way that we can utilize your talents and your time. It's just a few hours a week, or a month. And so really it's a great way to build a network and make an impact. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. So go ahead and go back up to the advocacy one, if you would.
I'm there now.
You're there now. Okay. I love this one. I am not a political person, and I have loved the power that comes with this. We just did a state Capital Day for the Alzheimer's Association, and I volunteered for that one. And I got matched up with representatives in my area, and I was able to talk with them over Zoom about Alzheimer's and the impact and what we need in this state to help with that. And it was just such a positive experience, and I loved it. And I thought, that's not as scary as I thought it could be. But speaking out on behalf of that, people just need to know what's going on. And we can do this on the local level, we can do this on the state level, we can do this on a national level.
We just, one of the issues that we addressed when we met with the folks that the state legislators that Lisa just referred to was getting an Alzheimer's and dementia coordinator in place under the Department of Health and Welfare. Good news, they passed it. It's been funded. So they'll begin the process of writing the state version of the job description. The politicians always have to do that. And then they'll begin filling the job. And we, in fact, tomorrow are doing a presentation, this very same presentation that we're doing right now. We're doing that for the state legislators because they passed this and it'll give them an understanding more of the disease and the impact. So we're doing that at noon tomorrow. And advocacy is fun because you meet, I've gone to Washington, DC and met with our senators, our state senators, US senators, and our state congressional representatives as well. Trial match, we already talked about extensively. A wonderful program to match folks up with clinical trials. It's easy, it's all confidential as well. So any information that you put in there is in a confidential file. Walk to Ends Alzheimer's, we only really have 2 fundraisers a year, and that's what the Alzheimer's Association is dependent on, fundraisers and grants, or donations and grants. The walk, we have 3 different walks statewide, Boise area, Twin Falls, and Idaho Falls. We're looking at putting another one up in the Sun Valley Haley area because they're kind of isolated up there. And then as well as Pocatello, we're looking at also. Hopefully, we're going to knock on wood, everyone, that we can have a real walk this year. They're always held in the fall, usually the first week of October. And the virtual walks work, but it's not the same. It is an absolutely wonderful, fun, yet emotional ceremony. Locally, we do it at Kleiner Park here in Meridian.
I would definitely want to echo some of that stuff. That walk to end Alzheimer's is so impactful. It's not like it's not like a fun run. You don't even have to walk if you don't want to. But there's a lot of things going on that day. There are different resources there available for you, and it really is a huge fundraiser. So another thing I love about the Alzheimer's Association is they are dependent on fundraising dollars and donations. But they use those so well. I mean, we have, there's a pretty minimal staff in Idaho. I would say it's growing, it's wonderful. So for a while we had like 3 people taking care of everything. They were working so hard. And so we've been able to, through these fundraisers, been able to make that a bigger agency, more impact, more people helping out. And then, like I said, they are a huge funder of research. So a lot of those dollars are going directly to research and support of.
Yeah, I heard something.
No, go ahead.
In Twin Falls, it's held at the College of Southern Idaho, and then in Idaho Falls, it's, Lisa, what's the park? It's on the Riverwalk there. I'm drawing a blank on the name of that park.
Snake River Landing.
Snake River Landing is where it's held in Idaho Falls. Then in Northern Idaho, Northern Idaho is actually part of the Eastern Washington, that chapter out of Spokane, and it's held, I believe, in Ponderay. And I think Lewiston does a small one as well.
Oh, cool.
So we're, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Nope, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we're gonna go ahead and open it up for questions to folks.
Looks like there's one I missed from Sandy here. Said that is there a correlation between brain injuries like concussion or stroke to Alzheimer's? Yes, there is. Or to dementia itself. We are definitely seeing more and more research come out with concussions, and that's why you're seeing a lot more athletic teams being careful about concussion protocols. So yeah, brain injury can definitely be, yeah.
I just spoke with a gentleman and his wife yesterday. He is suffering from dementia. He has early onset dementia, and his and I believe it's called TIF. His was not caused by football. His was caused by years and years and years of martial arts. He was like a nationally ranked athlete in martial arts, and that's what the physicians narrowed his down to. So any sort of impact, and it's just not just football quarterbacks. There's a high prevalence of head injuries with soccer players as well. So other rugby, and so any sort of contact sport, there's a high risk.
Exactly. So, and as we mentioned way earlier about different types of dementia, that vascular dementia that we mentioned, which is another high incidence of dementia, has to do with like strokes and TIAs quite a bit. So yes, there can be definite different correlations between those conditions and dementia. Thanks for that question. It is definitely getting more and more press and more and more attention. So. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, if you have any more questions, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask, or put them into the chat room. I'm happy to answer anything else you've got.
While we're waiting on this, I'm going to just mention a couple of things. You should have received a handout from AARP. If you did not, my email address is right there, and you can email me and I will send you the handouts for this presentation, Understanding Alzheimer's and Dementia. And then the second area, I am going to ask everyone on a big favor. Because we are dependent on private donations as well as grants, we present some programs that are grant funded by the Idaho Commission on Aging. And so we have a survey that's completely anonymous that I would love to send out to you if you would do it. That data is gathered by the Center for the Study of Aging at Boise State University. And it's assessing the value of the program and some of the results. And if you would be so kind to fill that out, what they do is they gather the data and then they turn it over to the Idaho Commission on Aging. It only takes about 5 minutes, completely confidential. You don't leave a name, you just leave nothing. It is a link that you'll just fill it out and click it and it'll go off to them. And again, my email is down there. If you would email me with your email, if you would please participate in it, and I'll send you a copy of the survey link. We would sure appreciate it. And again, it's to gather data related to these programs that serve the aging and those with dementia, and as well as grant dollars to go to the Alzheimer's Association to provide services, not only education, but support groups across the state of Idaho. We would sure appreciate your help in this.
Okay, so I see, Lisa, you put your email in the chat also. If anyone had any questions they wanted to direct to you, or if they just wanted to get a hold of you for some reason, they think of something after the fact.
Happy to do that.
Sure. Yeah. That is the name, and your company's name is?
It's Generations Occupational Therapy.
Okay.
And if you have any questions about what OT can do in that realm, I can go another hour on that one, but I'm happy to answer those questions.
So does anyone else have anything that they'd like to ask either Lisa or Rick at this time? Nope. Okay. Well, otherwise we would just like to thank both of you for your time and all the information you gave to us today. I'm sure that if anyone thinks of anything, they have a way to reach you. And if you'll please fill out that survey for Rick, send him an email, he'll send it back to you. I know they would appreciate that. If you did not get a copy of the presentation today and you would like one, please let us know. And these sessions that we do are all recorded. So if you know someone who wasn't able to attend today, they are all put onto our YouTube site, and you can look at this at another time, or you can direct someone to the AARP YouTube site and they can see this same presentation at another time.
I also wanted to mention too that on the ALZ site, the Alzheimer's Association has several different presentations. Some go into more detail than what you got today. There are some that focus on like behaviors and communication, when to place your loved one in a facility, all sorts of different presentations. Those are available on alz.org as well if you want more information.
Okay, so I think we'll close for today. Thanks to all of you for participating. And remember, we do have several more classes coming up through our spring session. You can sign up as late as the day of, because now that we're on Zoom, we don't have any restrictions on how many people can attend. So thanks again, and appreciate your time, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Stay-
Thanks, guys.
Stay
It was
safe.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.